If you're only on Airbnb or Vrbo, you don't own a business, you just own a listing. Ready to take full control of your hosting? Lodgify helps you run your vacation rental like a real business. Automated guest messaging, your very own direct booking website. Don't stay dependent on OTAs forever. Build your brand. For Sweet Success listeners, grab 20% off any yearly Lodgify plan with code SWEET20. That's sweet like Hotel Suite 20. Just hit the link in the show notes to get started.
I'm Gonzalo Aguilar, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I'm excited to welcome Gonzalo Aguilar to the show. Gonzalo is the CEO for Europe and the Americas of Minor Hotels, overseeing the company's operations and growth strategy in these key markets while leveraging his extensive expertise to drive performance and innovation. Prior to joining Minor, Gonzalo and I met while working at Marriott International, a company where he held various roles across various regions and time zones since 1994. After living in Miami, Costa Rica, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Brazil, he moved to Spain, where he is currently based. Gonzalo, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Katie.
I'm so happy to get to chat with you and reconnect today. And just listing all of those places that you've lived, you have really had such an international career, an international life. One of my favorite things about this industry. I understand that you were born in California. When and where did you move from there?
Yeah, so my parents are originally from Uruguay, from South America. But yes, they immigrated to the United States many years ago, and I was born in California. But we left the U.S. when I was about 7 years old, and we moved to the Middle East. My dad was in the hotel business as well. And worked in Saudi Arabia, and I grew up between Saudi and Jordan. And I actually graduated high school in Jordan and went back to the U.S. for university. But yeah.
Wow. Where in the U.S. for university?
I went back to Denver, University of Colorado in Denver.
Oh my gosh. And then after living in Denver, where'd you move from there? Like, have you lost track at this point?
No, I think that's, I think similar to what you said, what I've always found as one of the perks of this industry is really that ability to travel the world and live in different places. So yeah, I met my wife in Denver. We decided to take the next step. And when I moved from Denver, I actually moved back to Europe. And I joined right out of school, I joined a company called Continental Dairy Queen at the time, and worked as a franchise manager. This is back in 1990. And worked with them as a franchise manager, opening up Dairy Queens in Eastern Europe. Did that for a little bit, and then went down to Uruguay to start a family business with my father and my brother, and we did that for a couple of years, and we decided to get back into the hospitality world, but at a bigger scale. So I ended up moving back to the U.S., to Colorado, and I joined Marriott at that point in time at the Denver Tech Center in Denver, and then went from there and spent a couple of years in the U.S. and then back to international. It was calling. I really enjoyed the part of again learning different cultures and seeing different parts of the world. So it's been plenty of different spots across the world.
That's incredible. I mean, that's like three different lives within that one story alone. Like, I didn't know any of that about you. I just saw your incredible
Yeah,
hospitality career. And that's
yeah.
so cool. And I'm sure, like, franchise manager for Dairy Queens, there's a lot of parallels to all the franchise work that you did at Marriott and, I'm sure continued to do. What was the family business that you guys had started together? Was it in hospitality?
Well, yes, absolutely. As I said, my father was a hotelier and actually worked for Marriott for many, many, many years. And we decided to try to open a hotel in Uruguay in Punta del Este, and we started that business. But eventually, prior to opening, we sold the business and exited that, and moved each went our own way. It was definitely in the hospitality business.
That must be so insightful for you with all of your work with owners because you had been on that side yourself. Granted, it didn't open until before you sold, but still.
Correct. It was a huge learning, and obviously very young in my career, and had grown up in the industry, seeing let's say the operator side of it.
Right.
But when you start to look at it's not always that easy to develop a hotel, and that development work that takes place, and building a viable business and finding the financing and so forth. It always becomes a bit challenging. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can appreciate some of what my discussions with owners over the years has been, because I've been in that shoes. And actually, one of the things about Minor today is that I continue to reflect on that, because we do own quite a few of our hotels.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to talk about. I couldn't believe the percentage of hotels that you own,
Yeah,
especially when we hear in our industry everyone really shifting to this asset light strategy. And
correct.
obviously, we know there's pros and cons of both sides. But
Yeah.
just sticking with all the places that you've lived, all the places obviously you've visited from your career too, do you have a favorite?
I really don't. I mean, I've enjoyed each one in their own way, and I think that when I reflect back, and my family and my kids, we always talk about each one has their own special memory in our life. But I really enjoyed living in Brazil. Enjoyed getting to know that. I didn't expect to enjoy it, but actually,
Hmm.
it was one of the places that, when prior to moving here to Europe, to Spain, the family and I didn't necessarily want to leave, but it
Wow.
was it was uh, it was one of those places that we truly missed, and
Hmm.
and that was unexpected. But
Hmm.
I think they all have a special place in our memories of what we enjoyed, and we reflect on, as you grow a family, and you're moving to all these different destinations. It takes, each one has that special timing of
Totally. Yeah, I
being
completely
part of the family.
resonate with that. Yeah. How old are your kids now?
Oh, I have a 33-year-old and a 27-year-old, so they're not kids anymore, but
Wow. And are
two
they living in
daughters.
Spain as well?
No, they live in the UK. They live in the UK.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's
yeah,
amazing. I was thinking about this recently because my daughter was born in the UK and then we moved back to the States when she was about 10 months. And, being in different places, you almost don't get that continuity of one house and being like, oh, you used to do this here. But then in a way, it kind of preserves each time period, just like you were saying.
yeah, absolutely. And I think for and I think we always, as parents, wonder if our choices and how our choices impact our children. But
Sure.
I grew up the same, moving around the world, and both my daughters, I think, embraced that lifestyle, and it developed them, and that changing houses and learning different languages and cultures really has become a huge part of their life, and has really formed, shaped them as adults. So that's why
Yeah.
they live in the UK now. They love it. They love the melting pot of London, of all the different cultures in one place. And yeah.
That's a real gift to give your kids. Speaking of languages, obviously I know you're fluent in Spanish. Did you grow up speaking Spanish because of your parents?
Yes. So both of my parents were from Uruguay. So yes, my
Mhm.
mother tongue is Spanish, although I speak it with an American accent, and it's a
Really?
little bit of a twist. But yeah, it's hard to place my accent at times. But yeah, absolutely, it was my first language. But I was always educated in English, so that's
Yeah.
a bit easier for me.
And what was that first job at Marriott in Denver?
So I was an assistant restaurant manager at the Denver Tech Center. I was actually one of the few, I think there were three of us that did the takeover of a Sheraton. From one night to the next day, we came in and rebranded the hotel to a Marriott. So yeah, I grew up in food and beverage. That was always one of my passions, and enjoyed that throughout my career. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now going back to with what you said with starting at Dairy Queen, kind of having that food and beverage being that lead into the hospitality industry. I know you said obviously your dad had always worked in hospitality. When you started your career with Dairy Queen, was that almost a rebuttal of you did hospitality, I want nothing to do with that? Or did you always think that's a really interesting industry I want to be a part of one day?
No, so I actually I never wanted to do anything else. Hospitality was always what I was most interested in. I always tell people that I grew up with my father's apprentice program. You know, he didn't allow us to sit around in summer without a job. So he put us, both my brother and I, he put us to work very, very young, and just learning and training. And I think by the time I left home to go to university, I probably worked most positions inside of a hotel, whether that be bellman or front desk clerk or in the kitchen or in the restaurant, housekeeping. I had done them all, and I really enjoyed it. It was, something that I think from a very young age I embraced. I think the role at Dairy Queen, I found it interesting to learn something different outside of the hotel business. Enjoyed it, learned a lot. Not necessarily what I felt was I was lacking more the hotelier spirit and that creativity. Obviously, those type of businesses are very prescriptive and cookie cutter.
Yeah.
But what I always enjoyed in my career is that ability to create something, create different experiences. Especially in food and beverage, you come in every day and let's try to find how we can do something even better. And that was always what kept me going in my career. So hospitality was always going to be a big part of my life.
Yeah. You spent 25 years at Marriott. So from that first role in food and beverage in Denver, through everything that you did, like tell us a little bit about the progression there.
Yeah. So I spent like 30 years, almost 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I left Marriott in last year, and so almost 30 years. But I started in food and beverage, assistant restaurant manager, then moved to the Bay Area in San Francisco. Did director of restaurants there and director of food and beverage. And then I went to Quito, Ecuador, and we opened the JW Marriott in Quito, Ecuador. I was the director of food and beverage, and it was a very difficult time, and we faced some real challenges in the first 6 months of the opening of the hotel, and we ended up having to put in some contingency plans and make some reductions on expats. And I was asked to take on a dual role and play director of food and beverage as well as take on a director of sales and marketing because of the volcanic activity that was going on, some challenges with the government, different situations. So I did that for about a year and a half, and learned a lot about the other side of the sales and marketing piece of a hotel, and then I was offered my first role as a general manager at the JW Marriott in Miami in Brickell. and went to that was actually a franchise hotel. So the company had asked me to go join the franchisee there, and I stepped into that role.
That feels like really impressive, right? Because I feel like typically the GM comes from maybe more of the ops side. And at this point, you had food and beverage and sales and marketing. So
Correct.
what do you think it was that made others take notice that you were ready for that GM role?
I think the ops side, again, I think that's evolved over time. But the reality is, you know, my ability to manage big operations in the Bay Area. I was working in an F&B operation that, you know, it was significantly larger than you could imagine. It was, you know, 750 room hotel, a huge amount of banqueting space, several outlets.
Wow.
And I think that gave me the ability to lead broader teams. So I always look at it as probably my leadership skills that I was able to develop in those earlier roles, playing in bigger. And then I actually enjoyed going back to smaller operations. Like in Quito, it was obviously a much smaller operation, but it was one that required developing talent, local talent in a market where we're trying to bring our brand and launch that brand there. And I think that's probably what got me more noticed than anything, was really that ability to provide that leadership and my adaptability. I was able to step into a franchise and you know, play the conduit between brand and let's say, you know, Marriott, as well as play up the role of the franchisee who was looking for obviously someone to manage their business and their hotel for them. So
very cool. So then from Brickell, what happened next?
So then from Brickell, I took an opportunity to go back to international, and I moved to Costa Rica, to Los Sueños on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, and that was my first opportunity to step into a resort and manage a golf resort in Costa Rica for Marriott. And again, had a great opportunity there to learn the resort business and understand how different that was from some of the urban hotels I had worked in, as well as learn a little bit about the golf and casino business as the property had that. From there, I transitioned to the Caribbean. I worked in St. Thomas at the Frenchman's Reef Resort in St. Thomas. Yeah, that was, again, a big operation, very demanding, both from a customer perspective, in a challenging environment where you have, you know, the labor market is in all islands. It's tough to find labor. It's tough to find, you know, it's not an easy operating environment. So I learned a lot about, again, how to shift gears and engage in different parts of not only the business but also society, because you're living on a small island of, you know, I think it's 30 square miles, and you're one of the biggest employers on the island. You're fully integrated into the community, and that was a big learning as well for me. From there, I transitioned to Sao Paulo, Brazil, where I took on the role as general manager of the Renaissance Sao Paulo, but also as a country manager role. It evolved into a country manager role for Brazil. At the time, Marriott had 7 hotels in Brazil, and I played a role overseeing those 7 as well. And then I transitioned to Europe when Marriott acquired the AC hotel brand, and I was part of that integration team, and was based here in Madrid, working with Antonio Catalan and integrating the AC brand into the Marriott system, and you know, bridging that gap both from a system and business perspective, but also from a cultural perspective for AC to come into the Marriott world. So that was probably my first above property where I was no longer sitting in a hotel, but more in
Right.
a corporate role. And then after that, I moved to Frankfurt, and I was based out of Frankfurt, but I was the area vice president for Eastern Europe back in 2014. And I actually had the opportunity to do quite a bit of traveling and learn a part of the world that I had had some experience in, but not extensive as Russia and the CIS countries. So it really enjoyed that interesting parts of the world to really go in and launch hotels and Marriott into markets that are really let's say very immature in their way of where they were in the hospitality business. So
Sure.
I had that great opportunity to do that. And then when Marriott acquired Starwood, I transitioned to Southern Europe, area vice president for Southern Europe. And again, that was a great opportunity for me to look at a portfolio of hotels that was actually 95% of the portfolio were legacy Starwood properties. So I actually
Wow.
had to really learn about how Starwood operated and really understand the team dynamics. And so it was a huge learning as well.
That's fascinating. I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
drastic of a percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. Starwood had a much broader portfolio in Southern Europe than Marriott had at the moment. So it was a
Wow.
big shift.
Yeah. And I imagine with all of the integration work that you had done with AC, it was almost like a perfect like training ground for you of like, how do we integrate one brand? And now all of a sudden you're doing it at scale with the 9 Starwood brands or 10 with Design Hotels.
Absolutely. We I think that was, I leveraged a lot of that. But I went into it. When I think back on the merger of these two companies, I think each one of them really brought some great attributes. But I was able to really embrace some of the and learned a ton from my Starwood colleagues that were, when I think about brands and things of that, public PR, a lot of the marketing, I learned a lot from Starwood in that job that I had to do with these these hotels in Southern Europe and learning the approach that was done there. It was really quite interesting.
It's funny when we look back on things, it all seems so obvious, and it seems like, oh, of course, this was the path you needed to take. You've done such an amazing variety of roles within your career. You were talking about managing golf resorts, casinos, food and beverage, sales and marketing in different places around the world, different scales, different size hotels and such. Did you have this like grand master plan of like, oh, I'm missing this part of my experience and it's all working towards this incredible role that you have now? Or was it just like, how did you pick what was next each time?
No, I never had a master plan. I would tell you. I would tell you that I actually would, again, I grew up around the business, and my father was a general manager. Had a corporate role at one point in time in his career, and he said, isn't what I wanted to do, and I want to be a GM. I love being in the hotels and working with customers and working with associates. And so the reality is I kind of embraced that. I always had that feeling as well. So when I became a GM, I'm like, okay, I'm there. I don't really want to do anything else. I think it was when I became, after my third GM role, I said, well, okay, I'm still pretty young. I can do this for a lot longer. But I also think that the business was changing. So as I saw the business changing, I saw, okay, maybe there's a different way to approach this, and how do I learn and how do I continue to develop myself? And that's how I've always looked at these moves is, what can what can I learn next? But without really having the plan of more of, that sounds like fun. Let's go experience that. And, I think I've always been blessed with having some strong mentors that pushed me into thinking differently. And I've never been afraid of taking a risk. Unfortunately, my wife has always tagged along. So we decided to do these moves when it was good for our family, but it was never, let's do this now, let's do that, and we're gonna. This is where we wanted to go. No, we kind of just ended up here.
I love that. So currently, you are the CEO for Europe and the Americas for Minor Hotels, and it can be intimidating to start something new at any point, but I imagine particularly intimidating after being with one company for, like you said, nearly 30 years. What surprised you most about changing roles and changing companies?
I don't know if it's a surprise, but I think it was an opportunity to do something different at this point in my career that made me excited about joining the company. I also looked at it. It was a different model. Marriott taught me a lot, and obviously it's grown to be a massive organization. Minor, I would tell you, has very similar from a cultural perspective, but obviously with our size, we're much more agile and what attracted me was that ability to be part of something that's in really a transformation. So I when I say it's a different model, as I mentioned before, Minor Europe and Americas, we own or lease about 84% of our portfolio today. So that asset-heavy model was quite different than anything I was ever used to. And that kind of attracted me. Okay, let me learn more about how that business is. And, while I had some experiences with leases at Marriott, never had the scale of what we have with Minor. But what I found, again, not surprising, but pleasant, in a very pleasant way, was that while the models may be quite different, the passion around the people is still there, and that culture of and that drive for the company was really there. So it's I'm not sure it was a surprise, but I embraced it quite quickly, and I think it's quite special.
It's a good reminder sometimes when we get scared of going to the next thing, and then you see that actually what I loved about the last business is here too, or it's easy to make friends and colleagues again all over again, even though I've had that amazing tenure with the last company.
Absolutely.
And to talk about what you were saying with the differences, so just to share some numbers with the listeners and viewers, Minor has more than 640 hotels, resorts, and residences, including committed developments across 59 countries. It's obviously a really sizable portfolio, but like you said, Marriott has more than 9,000 hotels across 144 countries. And I really want to dig into what you just said about 84% of your portfolio being owned or leased, and that's specifically for Europe and the Americas. I imagine that gives you much more control over the guest experience, but what do you see as the key benefits of that, and maybe some of the challenges that come along with it?
So I think that the key benefits is that we are very much in control of our brands, and we can move much faster. If we want to change our brands, it's really up to us. We could have critical mass on any type of change that we would want to do to our brands rather quickly. And I think we're able to learn from our customers faster by testing, because there are hotels we can test different items in hotels and different approaches to the way we do the business. So there's quite a bit of benefit there, but I think the challenges I would tell you is obviously the risk. In an asset light model, the majority of the risk is being carried by the owners. Well, in this case, it's us. So we the pandemic was not an easy time for the company. It was quite challenging, but We've come out of it, I'd say, even stronger and more focused. But when we think about capital expenditures and maintaining that product and that brand and the development of those brands, it's a lot of various parts that you need to consider as you're going through the process. But again, I think it helps, it balances out. The risk reward is there. Obviously, we own the whole P&L. We're not driven by only fees. And I think that's also a benefit from us, for us, as the way we look at things. We do have HMAs, and we're starting to step into the franchise space. We look at things from an owner's lens more so, and that's been one of my biggest learnings over the 12 months. Yeah, I always have to pinch myself and say, no, keep in mind that I play an owner's role as well.
Yeah, with your background too, I feel like you're so suited to that as well. And speaking of development, I know Minor also has pretty major growth plans, a goal of 850 hotels by 2027. That's a huge increase from what we just said, 640, including committed development. So what is driving that growth?
Well, I think really what's driving the growth is the company. We have an asset right strategy. So we're able to really be flexible in our approach to developing any project and how we can partner. So whether that's strategic leases, or if that's looking at equity investments or joint ventures with partners in various markets, or straightforward HMAs in different markets. And now, obviously, we're building a franchise platform here in Europe and Americas to really try to drive our growth. But we have the span of all of these various models and that flexibility to move quickly and adapt to how do we create win-win situations, whether that's for a partner, a potential owner, or a franchisee.
Mm-hmm. You have 8 hotel brands: Anantara, Avani, Eloana Collection, NH Collection, NHOW, Oaks, and Tivoli, most of which operate in your regions, Europe and the Americas, with the exception of Oaks and Eloana. How do you think about those 6 brands, and how do they provide different experiences or maybe options to your guests?
Yeah. So if we start at the top with our luxury brand, Anantara is one of our founding brands. It was born in Thailand, and it's really an experiential brand that we've been able to bring to Europe. And if you look at our assets here in Europe, we have some iconic buildings that really we've been able to bring a local experience. So, Anantara may be perceived as an Asian brand. Well, it's not really an Asian brand. It's much more about local and being part of that local community. And when you think about it, whether that's our convento on the Amalfi Coast, or the Palazzo Naiadi in Rome, or the Marker in Dublin, it's really those local experiences that we try to magnify. So it's very much that experiential luxury focus that we have in the Anantara. When you think about Tivoli, this is a brand that was born in Portugal. We have our landmark Tivoli Liberdade in Lisbon. And it's one of these classic, iconic, I would say approachable luxury brands that would, again, we're very much focused on that resort experience. We've actually been growing that brand more so in the resort space. But it has a certain timeless elegance to it and grandeur, but not overdoing it, and it really has done well for us. When you look at Avani as another brand, Avani is another brand that we imported from Thailand. It started in Asia, and it's more a millennial-minded traveler focus, a little bit more lifestyle. And we have about 8 of those in Europe and Americas today. And again, it's one of those brands that it's growing on the awareness side, but the customers love it. The quality scores are quite high. The experiences that are being had there by our travelers are quite appreciated. Then for Europe and Americas, our founding brand here, which was started in 1978, is the NH hotels. And NH, I would characterize it as it's smart hospitality. One of the pillars is having a great location. So you'll find a lot of our NH hotels in very, prime locations within the cities. The target is urban settings, but it's very no nonsense experience. Typically, I think one of our key focuses is really having an exceptional breakfast experience. The room product is everything that you need, probably nothing that you really don't need. But it's a great experience. NH Collection was started about 10 years ago. We're just celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And it plays in the upper upscale space, and obviously builds off of the NH history, but has a little bit more richness to it. It's really about creating something that's unique, again, very local, more enhanced F&B experiences in many of our locations, and obviously it's done well for us.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think I've covered them all. Those are the key ones. Well, now.
What about now? Yeah.
Yeah, now is one that we have 10 hotels. We just opened Lima. And now is, I would tell you, is a lifestyle brand, very, very particular. Each one is different. This is each now has its own theme and its own design. And I would tell you that it's a bit polarizing. You're either going to really love it or you're just not going to get it.
I love that.
But it's got definite character and a strong personality. I've found them fantastic. We actually just rebranded a hotel in Rome. We have the NHOW. Rome just opened 2 weeks ago. We did a launch on that as well. So it's one of our hotels. It's very much a destination in itself. So if we have the NHOW Rai in Amsterdam, which is an absolutely fantastic hotel, big hotel, group hotel, but really inside of that hotel, it's quite a destination. Our customers don't necessarily need to go explore the city if they don't want to. They have plenty to do inside.
Wow, that sounds incredible. I really want to go check those out now. I love a brand with a personality.
Absolutely.
Ones that rub people the wrong way. I'm like, yes, thank you for standing for something. I like that. I know you also recently consolidated your brand loyalty programs into one, Minor Discovery. How is the company thinking about loyalty moving forward?
So I think loyalty, as many as it is for everyone, I think in the industry, has become a key pillar for anyone's success of how to continue to engage with your customers. Minor Discovery really gives us the opportunity to consolidate our customers into one platform where they can find what they're looking for across the globe. Previously, this was brand by brand. Now we really have that consolidated and are able to understand what they're looking for and communicate with them in a more holistic way, and talk to them about what we have across all of our, as you think about, some of the our recent. One thing, when we talk about brands, we've actually added more brands to our portfolio in the last few months. And this is obviously leaning on Minor Discovery to help us communicate to our customers. We are now talking to them about our 2 collection brands that we've launched, Colbert Collection, as well as Minor Reserve Collection. But we've also launched a mid-scale brand that is our iStay brand. So that's very, very much a way for us to, again, start to focus on these loyal customers that we have. And the various different travel needs that they may have and the various different destinations that they have, and how we can offer that to them in one platform.
Yeah, that's incredible. If you think ahead, both for the company as well as for the industry, do you have any predictions for the future? Whether it's, like I said, internally, more brands, more growth, or just in general, future of hospitality?
I'm not sure if I can predict anything, but I think what we continue to see is that this. I think today's travelers are looking for something unique, and it's not only whether it's in the business travel space or in the leisure space. I think that unique experiential travel is continuing to grow. I think the pandemic changed the way we thought about travel, and it's I so I think for our industry, we're going to have to continue to think of ways to differentiate ourselves from others, and to find, kind of keep pace with where the traveler's evolving. I think whether it's from a technology perspective, and finding that right balance between technology and actual the human touch of hospitality, we need to ensure that we keep that balance. I think it's also around what's the next brand that people are going to be so fanatical about that we're all going to try to follow. But I still think that we need to focus on bringing that new experience, but doesn't always have to be in some let's say futuristic way. I think one of these is we are also another brand that we are launched, and we're hopefully looking to start opening some hotels is the Wolseley Hotel brand. The Wolseley, as you know, we have an iconic restaurant in London, and it's a great example of how does that iconic restaurant that's very classical, but is really quite unique. How do we bring that into the hotel space? And as you look to the future of hospitality, I think you'll see more of that these brands that play in different businesses, in even different segments, how do they interpret into a hospitality space, is something that I think we'll continue to see more of. We've seen it in the past, and we'll continue to see that as well.
That is so exciting. When is that first hotel meant to debut?
Oh, I wish I could tell you, Katie, but
TBD. Stay
TBD.
tuned.
Stay tuned in the next couple of weeks. You'll see him announce us, I'm sure.
Okay, that's exciting. Well, Gonzalo, I want to ask you the last three questions that I ask every guest. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience you've had?
Oh, I would tell you that there's quite a few. But I think there's just some of those hotels that really stand out to me as when you arrive, that you feel that you're at home, and it's just an incredible eye for detail. I think of one of our ex-hotels, the Gritti Palace in Venice, has always been such a unique place. At the time, Paolo Lorenzoni, he had such an eye for hospitality and for luxury, and you could sense it through that whole experience, and everything was so thoughtful of how they executed it. So I think those are the type of things. I think I had one recently, actually on my onboarding with Minor. I was able to visit quite a few of our hotels in Asia, and I was up in Chiang Rai in the north of Thailand. And was able to walk with the elephants in the morning, and just these incredible experiences. So it's hard to choose one, but it's really those unique, personalized experiences and authentic experiences that you find that always stand out to me.
That's fantastic. And Paolo was actually a guest of the show, so I'll be sure to link his episode in the show notes as well. Next question, other side of the coin, what was the worst hospitality experience you've ever had?
Worst, I'm not sure. I think there's places that I'll be honest with you. Sometimes when you go to some of the markets, U.S. is a market where I think that we need to do better of maintaining hospitality. I've had some experiences when you arrive from a long flight, you check into the hotel late at night. Well, the model has been so stripped down that there's nothing to eat anymore. There's nowhere to go. And there's just a lack of empathy. So there's places around that in every market. But I think I one jumps out at me. No, but I think there's probably several occasions when you feel that lack of empathy and that lack of focus on the customer. It's been more so around that.
Hear to that. And final question, what does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand that you think has truly mastered it?
Hospitality for me is, again, that of really taking care of people, creating, I think, more of a craftsmanship. And I think that's where, as you grow in scale, it's always harder to keep that craftsmanship. And I think that there's clearly there's some luxury brands out there that have been able to master that. But I also think that there's other brands that play in the upscale space that, again, they've identified really what their customers' needs are and deliver that flawlessly and consistently across their portfolio. So I wouldn't call out any brands in particular. I think that there's properties that have really mastered that craftsmanship. I think there's some chains that have really been able to deliver against their promises to the customer. And again, I think, to be honest with you, even when I think about NH is one of those brands that have just been able to consistently, I tell my team all the time, I'm not sure I need to visit guest rooms anymore as I travel to the various markets, because they're all very much consistently the same. And we've been able to really master that consistency. But look, I think there's quite a few out there, probably more than I can name right now.
Well, Gonzalo, it's been so fun to reconnect with you and get to learn so much about you that I didn't even know. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. It's time for today's sweet summary, where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. Gonzalo's career has taken him through what feels like nearly every role in hospitality, in almost every corner of the globe. He's someone who always knew he wanted to be in this industry, thanks in part to the example set by his father. But what really stood out to me was how he's built a career around curiosity, connection, and the willingness to keep exploring what's next. His early experiences managing franchise expansion for Dairy Queen and partnering on a hotel with his family gave him a rare kind of empathy. Today, when he's sitting across the table from a hotel owner or franchisee, he doesn't just understand their perspective, he's lived it. That duality of being both operator and partner is what makes his leadership so grounded. Looking back on Gonzalo's career, it almost feels like there was a master plan, though he assured us there was not. Each move came from a simple philosophy. That sounds like fun. His open-mindedness mixed with the unpredictable moments life throws our way, like volcanic activity that led to staff reductions, which gave him his first opportunity to lead sales and marketing, became the recipe for a dynamic international career built on saying yes. Gonzalo pointed out that travelers today are looking for something unique, something that feels authentic, connected to the destination. And in many ways, that sentiment mirrors his own journey. A life shaped by discovery, rooted in authenticity, and always guided by a sense of place.
And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.
If you're only on Airbnb or Vrbo, you don't own a business, you just own a listing. Ready to take full control of your hosting? Lodgify helps you run your vacation rental like a real business. Automated guest messaging, your very own direct booking website. Don't stay dependent on OTAs forever. Build your brand. For Sweet Success listeners, grab 20% off any yearly Lodgify plan with code SWEET20. That's sweet like hotel suite 20. Just hit the link in the show notes to get started.